Are you a busy woman who prioritizes everyone else's health above your own? Do you have questions about your diet, exercise, or how to prevent or treat certain health conditions? Are you always Googling health questions that you forget to ask or are embarrassed to ask your primary care physician? Girl, do you even have a primary care physician? Well, welcome to Headed to Healthier. I'm Dr. Brittney Anderson, a board-certified family medicine physician, and every day in my private practice, I have discussions with women just like you who are doing their best to juggle the demands of life while also desiring to become healthier. Inside this podcast, you'll find practical and actionable health tips that you can incorporate into your daily life. You'll get expert advice and insight from some of my awesome healthcare colleagues, and you'll hear relatable conversations with incredible women just like you who have made their health a priority and are thriving because of it. So throw on your sneakers and get some steps in while you listen. Or if you're driving, get those hands at 10 and 2 and let's dig in. We are headed to healthier. Hey ladies, welcome back to today's episode. I'm so excited to be joined by Dr. Janeeka Benoit, who is an internal medicine doc with special training in sports medicine. And Dr. Benoit is in Tennessee. You're in Tennessee, is that right?
That is correct. I am about 45 minutes away from Nashville, Tennessee, which is in a town called Murfreesboro.
Gotcha. Okay, I know Murfreesboro. No, Nashville a little bit better, but Murfreesboro is close, as you said. So happy to have you here, Dr. Benoit. Tell us a little bit about you. I know today we're going to talk just about kind of health being generational and the importance of building strength and energy and really long-term wellness. But let's kick that off with you telling us just a little bit about yourself.
Yes. So originally, I hail from the best city in New York City, that is Brooklyn, New York. I live in Tennessee now, but I'm going to rep Brooklyn always. And as a young child, I struggled with obesity. And I really, in my preteen years, I really tried really hard. So I played sports, and I come from a Haitian family, so we eat a lot of rice. And so during that time, I started decreasing my rice portions and, really engaging into sports activities. And I can remember when I entered the eighth grade, the first day back of school, people were so surprised because I had lost all this weight. And then I think that really got me started on my health journey from just dealing with obesity. And so throughout that, I knew that I wanted to become a doctor very early because my dad is also a doctor as well. So I spent some time, a lot of time, shadowing him in his office and in the hospital. And then as I was applying to medical school, I got my personal training certification. And
That's really cool.
yeah, so I was training clients as a personal trainer. Because I just loved health and fitness. And then I went ahead, I got into medical school. I did internal medicine residency. I did my sports medicine fellowship. And then my training has, or my practice has really evolved because I've worked in so many aspects of medicine. I've done primary care, hospitals medicine, obesity medicine, and I thought, how about I take everything together and create a practice focusing on women who are struggling with obesity and weight management. And so that is how I created Invessel Health and Wellness, which is my telehealth practice.
Awesome. I love that. And I think it makes such a big difference when you are practicing from a place of lived experience,
Oh
right?
my gosh,
So
yes.
that's an experience that you share with your patients. And so you're able to make that connection with them that they may not otherwise feel comfortable making. And when we as docs are not able to make that initial connection with our patient, it kind of messes up the rest of the relationship going forward, right? But when patients are able to identify something in us that they also see in themselves, and then see the other side of that. So they see the promise of the possibility of better health and things like that from you as their doctor. So I'm sure that that whole thing comes full circle and really helps you to develop, just maybe an even closer relationship with your patients. Would you say that?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I think, especially for women, they may sometimes feel ashamed to speak up and talk about their feelings, or they can just say, "Oh, well, maybe I'm crazy," or maybe it's just my hormones, not without really delving into what that actually means. And I think it's important to share your story, and that's actually something that I have been intentional about doing, just because I know that sometimes women may be not inclined to really fully speak up about what they're feeling in their body, especially, for those high achieving women who are like used to going and doing the things and just performing, that it can be easy to disregard what your body is telling you, right? And so, I am just like them. Right? I understand the high performance and the keep on going, the high functioning. I am just like them. And I try to normalize this experience and let them know that, listen, it's time to just take a step back and to listen to what your body is telling you, listen to those cues, and seek help if it is really impairing your quality of life.
Yeah, I think that's so important. You've shared, Dr. Benoit, that even as a physician, you reached a point where the workouts and the routines that you had relied on, and maybe that it worked for you in the past, just all of a sudden didn't work for you anymore. You,
Listen, doctor, yeah, I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell Okay, so the thing about me, like I told, I struggle with obesity, and so very early as a preteen, I got into exercise and health. So I was, well equipped to understand what to eat and how to train my body. However, once I started reaching that, the mid-30s mark, where perimenopause starts to happen,
yes, perimenopause is real.
it's real. I started getting all this abdominal fat around my midsection. And like usually like I know how to train and I'm like, okay, this is weird. And then my clothes, I noticed, were not fitting the same. And I went for my blood test and my LDL was high for the very first time ever. And like I said, thought I was doing all the right things. And I'm like, wow, like my body is changing. And also at the same time, I was I was treating patients with obesity, and they would say things like, I'm always thinking about food and I have all this food noise, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So I had to take a step back, because for me it was very frustrating, especially being like type A, thinking that you're doing all the right things. Like I can understand for women how it can be frustrating, even when you're doing all the things,
Right.
right? So I had to take a step back and be like, okay, what is like where can I start first? And for me, it started with my nutrition
Hmm.
because I realized even though I was snacking, for example, like I would snack a lot, and then that would prevent me from having meals with adequate nutritional content, right? And so what I did was I started incorporating more protein in my meals, right?
Hmm.
And so that helped. Even with my snacks, I changed my snacks to more forward protein meals. So instead of having like chips, I would have like a Greek yogurt, or it would be a quinoa chips, but not a huge portion as I did before with Greek yogurt, right? So it was a carb and a protein paired together so that my, insulin response would stay stable and I wouldn't always be hungry thinking about food.
Right.
And
People have that problem through the day. Just what you
yeah,
said. It is seems like all day we're eating, or and it's really when we think about it, it's just that you're eating things that aren't gonna keep you full for any long period of time. So not those protein heavy snacks.
exactly. And I think it's also important for someone who is very performance driven that we have to also make sure that we are nourishing ourselves
Yes,
adequately, because it can be so easy to just go throughout the day and you're not eating, and then by the evening you're starving, right? And it's
exactly.
so easy to just, pick the easiest thing, go to the fast food restaurant, where we instead we're making sure that we stay satiated throughout the day. Even if you're busy and you have a protein shake with you, that is better than nothing, right? And so ensuring that we are supporting our body in the way that it needs to be supported.
Absolutely, so important, and I love your message in general. Your message that health and wellness isn't optional, right? You talked about how when you got into kind of preteen years, certainly in your teen years, it's when you started to take an even a deeper look at your overall health. But you talk about health and wellness not being optional, but being generational. Tell us what you mean by that and how you think women should begin to think differently about the impact of the health choices they make.
Yeah, I love this because I think also it's important that sometimes we have to rethink the way that we've interacted with food based on
Mhm.
our lived experiences when we were
Yeah,
younger.
yeah,
So, for example, for me, like growing up in a Haitian household, like rice is a staple, and and not only that, it's just like if someone gives me a food, it is like a badge of honor sometimes to have a lot of food on your plate,
right.
right? Just like where I come from. Like if you don't have a lot of food on your plate, then you're gonna be looked at like weird. What is wrong with you? You need to be eating more, right? Or if you're eating less, that's you're also gonna be looked at. But I think it's important now, especially that I have really delved into like nutrition and fitness is really ensuring that our plates are balanced,
Yeah.
right? Making sure that it's not really about heaping on piles of food on the plate, but making sure that these are balanced meals and we know what a balanced meals look like and also how it feels within our body, right? That when we eat these balanced meals, we know that we will feel satiated from it. And so an example of a balanced meal is, making sure that you're having a protein on there, right? This could be chicken, fish if you're vegetarian, lentils, chickpeas, making sure that you have a complex carb on there. Now, a complex carb is a carbohydrate that's not going to spike your sugar levels up, and it's not going to cause also an associated spiked insulin response. This could be brown rice, this could be bulgur, this could be sweet potato even. But that's also a misconception. People think that sweet potatoes are sweet, but actually it helps to stabilize your sugar
I feel
levels.
like I have that discussion with patients every day.
No,
Sweet
versus
potatoes.
yes, versus a white
Yeah.
potato. Um, and then a healthy fat. This could be, avocado. Maybe if you like cheese, you could sprinkle some cheese on there. And, definitely vegetables. Eat plenty of vegetables. And so that is what a balanced plate should look like. And also was just being mindful of our portion sizes. For your protein, it should be about the palm of your hand. Okay, again, for your carbs, also the palm of your hand. And then for your fat, either the length of your thumb, or if you make an OK sign, the circle within the O. And so, understanding the balance macronutrients and understanding the portion sizes are very helpful, especially helpful for me. And it helps me to redo kind of the things that I thought needed of how my plate needed to look like when I was younger. And eating it this way makes me feel satiated.
Absolutely. And I think that's what so many people think, that I'm not going to be full if that's what my plate looks like. We're talking about actually putting enough on your plate, but that it's reasonable things that you're choosing and that the portion size is correct.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that. And I love the way you explain that to us. And you mentioned earlier the practice that you're building in Vessel. And I know that that practice is built around this concept of four areas of investment. And that
Mhm,
first area of investment that you talk about is investing in understanding, and just
mhm,
in listening to you kind of describe what our plate should look like. I know that
mhm,
that's one of the biggest things that you work with your patients on. Share
mhm.
with us, Dr. Benoit, some of the biggest kind of misconceptions that you see when it comes to patients or people talking to you about fat loss and muscle and just general metabolic health.
Yeah, I think one of the misconceptions I see is connecting our worth to the scale. That is a huge one where, they may be doing the work, they may be doing, make sure they're eating right, making sure they're getting in their strength, but it's like the scale won't budge. And that has to do a lot with mindset. Sometimes, these are women that may have dealt with obesity. And so they're used to looking at the scale and used to looking at that number and creating a story of what that number means about them, right? And then you have, just their history of, becoming obese and, all the negative remarks that they have gotten regarding, their body size. And so sometimes we create stories in our mind that are not true, and sometimes a scale can help magnetize those stories. And so I think it's important to understand that you are worthy regardless, that a number has no place in telling you your worth, that it's important to understand what our inherent worth is, right? And sometimes we have to change our ways of how we measure our progress. So another thing I help my patients with is understanding their body composition. And unlike a scale of the body composition, it tells you what your muscle mass is, it tells you what your body fat is, your body fat percentage, the visceral fat, the fat around your organs. And that I find that that's a much accurate measurement to measure progress, because it can look that you are not losing weight, but in fact you are gaining muscle, you're losing body fat, and that is what a bioelectric impedance scan can tell you that a scale cannot.
Absolutely. And I love the point that you made earlier that sometimes we have these, thoughts that are persistent and pervasive already. And then that number on the scale helps to encourage those thoughts along. And so I love how you talk about the difference in realizing that your self-worth is not, dependent on the numbers that you see on the scale. I think that's so important. Now, Dr. Benoit, I know that you love your exercise.
I do.
A strong emphasis on strength. Tell us why building and maintaining muscle is such a critical foundation for women's long-term health, energy, and independence, especially as we age.
Yeah, so by the time we're 30 years old, we already start losing muscle mass. And then by the time we get into menopause, it goes down even further. And so I really like to encourage in their 20s, to start developing a strength training regimen, because sometimes it takes time to build that habit of making that part of your lifestyle. But that is what happens. And then another thing is, as we're losing muscle mass, our basal metabolic rate, which is a number that tells us how many calories are being burned just to keep us alive, that decreases as well. And that can impact our ability to hold on to fat. And so as we age, our muscle mass is declining. As we age, our basal metabolic rate is declining. So if you adopt a strength training regimen, what can happen is you are activating your muscle. You're preserving your muscle mass, or you're gaining your muscle mass, and the muscle, it's considered what is metabolically active. So what that means is that you are burning calories even at rest. And also, what that does, it helps to boost your metabolism. It helps to boost your basal metabolic rate. And so this really creates a much more energy efficient way of helping us burn those calories. And so listen, you can burn calories, and that's why I love it so much, because you can burn calories as you sleep. You know what I mean? Okay, you can burn
6
calories as you sleep,
p.m.
but exactly, just by having the muscle on you. And so I think it's so important for every woman to start developing a strength training activity. The other thing is also, as we age, osteoporosis, especially if it is within your family, if you have a family history of osteoporosis, um, that can also take effect. And so by having a strength training regimen, that can help to decrease incidence of osteoporosis. That is, I mean, And then also it just makes you feel good. It's just so great to it makes you feel strong and you feel like for me, it makes like that is my go-to is right now is focusing on strength. I was a really, really big runner, but I am in a period of life where I'm really want to challenge my body. And that's another thing that you want to do with strength training. It shouldn't feel like when you go through your reps, by the time you get to the, second to last rep, or the last one or two reps, it should feel like, oh, this is really hard, right? Like you want to feel that way. So you want to make sure that when you are strength training, that you are challenging your muscles. And so those are just some reasons why strength training is important, especially in women.
Absolutely right. And I love that so much. Now, getting back to the core pillars that you have at Invessel, lifestyle alignment, I know is one of them also. And my listeners, I love the listeners of this podcast, and I really appreciate them taking the time to listen because I know that my listeners are busy women. That's kind of the idea of the show that, we as women tend to have ourselves pulled in so many different directions, whether it is with work or taking care of families, kids, or aging parents, etc. So, really busy women who have now said, okay, this next phase of my life is about me. I've got to work on taking care of myself. So, in talking about lifestyle alignment, specifically looking at real life for busy women, what are some recommendations or advice that you have to help us kind of move away from something extremes? Because extremes don't tend to work and
Right.
tend to not be sustainable. What are things that we can incorporate into our, busy daily lives to help promote general good health?
Right. So first off, it's important to think about, okay, like what do you enjoy doing? So like when it comes to movement, how do you like to move? What feels good in your body, right? So if it's walking, even dancing, right? That certainly qualifies it. So like think about what are those things you used to do before that you actually love doing, right? And so I think that is always a great place to start. Also, when it comes to nutrition, like think about foods that that you enjoy. You don't have to overhaul like all your foods. Like for example, I stated that, I used to eat quinoa chips. But the thing is like I ate a lot of them and I wouldn't have meals. And now like I have a quinoa chip paired with a protein, like a Greek yogurt. All right. So I would have the carb and then I had the protein, and that will help me feel more satiated. So you don't have to overhaul your whole refrigerator, but think about staples that you enjoy eating and finding out additional macronutrients that can help to satisfy your appetite so that you're not always hungry, especially if you're always on the go. The other thing with movement, you don't have to spend an hour to 2 hours in the gym. That you don't have to do that. Okay.
Not necessary.
It's not necessary. And so even by just having just 5 pound weights at home, that is sufficient, right? And as long as you are moving your muscles against resistance, that is what counts. I mean, even if you have a weighted vest and you're walking, that is sufficient. If you're doing a home workout at home, you don't have to spend hours in the gym. I would say anywhere like 3 days a week, 10 to 30 minutes, depending on the time that you have for yourself. That is absolutely fine. And so I do love this topic because sometimes it's like we think that we have to go through all these extreme measures, and that really sets us back. And then that's, where the spiral comes, and then the stories about ourselves can come. But the most important thing is to be consistent. So small habits. Listen, even if you have 5 minutes, that is okay. 5 minutes, 5 days a week, 5 minutes, 3 days a week. If that is all that you have to yourself, I would say that is okay. And I think also it's important to respect the seasons of life that we're in because every season is going to be different.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I love
Mhm.
that. And like I said before, I know already, I know that your patients love this type of interaction that I'm sure you have with them too. Because you and I are sitting here on virtually talking to each other, and I can see how much passion you're putting into it. So I know your patients see that passion because your practice is a telemedicine or telehealth based practice. Tell us
Yes.
a little bit about Invessel. What made you want to build it? Tell us what states you are able to see patients in the telemed platform. Just tell us all about it.
Yeah, so Invessel Health and Wellness. So I have to tell you the backstory. I have worked in I have had different businesses. Prior to this, I had a real estate business, and I was thinking about, okay, how do from real estate, I learned so much. It wasn't just about the real estate, but it helped me grow as a person.
While you
Um,
were practicing medicine, you had a real estate business?
while I was practicing
Wow.
medicine, it helped me learn so much. It helped me just develop better relationships. It helped me learn how to cultivate those relationships because it was very relationship heavy. I realized in the encounters that I would have, especially like with women, it was just like this go, 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 go. And I love talking about health and I love talking about wealth. Like those are two things that I love to talk about.
They go hand in hand.
Yeah, and they go hand in hand. And so when I thought about the name for the business, I knew I wanted to have like inside of it, and I
Mhm.
also wanted to have something that relates to the body. So
Uh-huh.
that's why I
Oh,
created
I love it.
Invessel. Yeah,
Yeah,
because it's invest in vessel.
I
It's
love
short
that.
for invest in vessel.
Right.
And just in your money, you have to like invest in your money, right?
Mhm.
It's learning how to save, learning how to invest, compounding growth. And that's the same thing with your health.
Yeah, yeah.
It's you make those small consistent habits and that makes a huge change in your overall health. Same thing in your money. You make those consistent changes in your money and you see that compound growth over time. And so I realized that, health and wealth, they're like pretty similar. And being on both sides being on both sides, I was like, I want to, bridge the gap and bring it all together. And so that was, I mean, I had so many motivations for this business, but that was just like one of the things that I was thinking about. And then it came also my own personal journey, and I have been sharing about my personal journey with struggling with child obesity. And that was my motivation to become a personal trainer and even go into sports medicine because while being in internal medicine during residency, it was, focusing on just managing the disease. And I really wanted to go more into it. And
Right.
then and then I worked in obesity medicine. I worked for an obesity medicine telemedicine company. And I really there, and as I was, helping my patients, I'm like, it would just be so cool for me to just bring everything, all my experiences
Yeah,
together.
absolutely.
It's my personal experience, my professional experiences, all together in this practice, and I'm really excited to share this with other women.
Yes, and speaking of that, you have an upcoming webinar series, right? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes.
Is it a
um
series or just one?
It's gonna be a series, a monthly series. But
Okay.
I my first one for the year is Sunday, January 25th at 7 p.m. CST, 8 p.m. EST. It's called Beyond Your BMI, and we're gonna talk about what actually goes into your metabolic health. So I'll be talking a lot about body composition, and I'll be speaking about how your body composition really is a much better assessment of your metabolic health as opposed to BMI. And that's the thing. When I was treating my patient with obesity, I would ask them what their goal is. A lot of the times they'll say, I just want my BMI to be normal range, or I
Mhm.
just want my BMI to not say overweight or obese. And really, we have to move away from that because and it comes back to the first pillar is investing in understanding. What is BMI? BMI was actually first created by a mathematician in the 1800s to study population health. It's composed of our height and weight, but it doesn't tell us what our weight is consisted of. It doesn't tell us about our muscle mass. It doesn't tell us about our body fat mass. It doesn't tell us about our body fat percentage. And so it's understanding all those components of our body, and by understanding those components of our body, we can then or I can then devise strategies of how to improve your body composition in
Right.
a favorable that is favorable for your metabolic health.
Absolutely. Well, looking forward to this webinar, and you're going to make it a series. Is that correct?
That is correct, a monthly series.
Awesome. I love that. And so, if you wouldn't mind, Dr. J, if you will pass along maybe the link that ladies can sign up to be a part of the webinar, I'll make sure that I tag it in the show notes. But this episode is airing on Wednesday, January 21st. Tell us one more time the date
A
for it.
sun Yeah. Oh, the airing. Yes. The date is Sunday, January 25th at 7 p.m. CST, 8 p.m. EST.
So if you're listening to this on the date that it airs or anywhere before Sunday evening, you can absolutely catch this webinar. If not, be sure to follow Dr. J on her social media platforms because there she will be announcing the future webinars. Tell us where folks can find you on social media.
Yeah, so I love to hang out on Instagram at Hey Dr. J _, also on LinkedIn, which is my full name, Janeeka Benoit. So those are the places that I like to hang out at. So catch me.
Perfect. And I'll link both of those in the show notes as well so folks can find you there. All right, Dr. J, Dr. Benoit, we're calling you both today. I love both. I think I just really like saying Benoit too. So I love that.
Call
So
me whatever you
we are
want. It's fine.
going there you go. There you go. I'll call you friend for sure. And I appreciate you
Aw.
so much being on the episode today. It has been really fun to watch you grow this practice. And Invessel is certainly going to be a blessing to all patients who come into contact with you. Would you mind telling us before we go what states you are accepting patients from? That's one of the beauties of telemedicine, that they don't have to be right there in the same state as you. You can reach folks in other states as well.
Yeah, so we can do this by region. So if you're in the South, can I get a South roll call? If you're in Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Indiana, then I'm licensed in those states. If you're in the Midwest, can I get a Midwest roll call? If you're in Ohio, Minnesota, Wisconsin, then I'm licensed in those states.
Awesome. I love that. You're putting our geography to the test here. That is wonderful. All right, Dr. J, if you will, give us closing words. I like to ask my guests to kind of end us on whatever note you feel most comfortable with, whether it's something about just kind of general health and wellness, if it's something about your practice, something about the upcoming webinar, anything that you want listeners to take away from this episode today.
Yes, because I speak to so many different women, I think it is important for us as women to vocalize what we are feeling, to take time to pause and to really give words to what our bodies are feeling and to not suffer in silence. That if something is wrong and something feels wrong, to speak up to a clinician who can help you. And if you're not experiencing the relief that you need, always feel free to get a second opinion. But I think it's important as women, especially busy women, that your platform is speaking to make sure that we take time to pause and really give words to what our bodies are telling us, and to vocalize those words to someone who can help.
Absolutely. I love that. Wonderful closing words. Dr. J, thank you for so much for joining us today. Dr. Janeeka Benoit, it has been a pleasure to have you on Headed to Healthier. I wish you the best in all you do. Hey, thanks for listening in today. I hope something you heard in this episode will help you on your journey to becoming healthier. Remember, this podcast offers general health information. I am not your personal physician. If you need advice that is specific to you, be sure to consult your physician. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider sharing it with a friend and reviewing it on Apple Podcasts. Also, be sure to subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode. Tune in next week for another great episode of Headed to Healthier. Until then, take care of yourself. Talk soon. Bye.